US 40. Yeah. All right. I've been excited about this one for a long time. Are you ready for some football? Yeah, we're kicking off tonight, and we've got US 40, which goes from Atlantic City to Kansas City in this episode, and we'll pass through Baltimore and Kansas City as well. Originally planned to do all of 40, but it would have been like 500 slides, so I'm saving the second half for the final week of the NFL season when the Chiefs played Denver. Go Chiefs! Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the route of US 40. We see it starts in Atlantic City and goes all the way to Park City, Utah. Used to go all the way to San Francisco, but from Park City on, it was replaced entirely by I-80. And today, like I said, we are just talking about the eastern portion of it up until Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. All right, we are going to be talking only about westbound US 40. So let's start here at the very beginning. We are on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey, looking at the ocean. We turn around right at this point and we get this little alley that goes out to Atlantic Avenue. So let's go down that alley to Atlantic Avenue. Here is where we get to Atlantic Avenue from that alley. And we'll turn right and we will head over to Albany Boulevard, where we will be turning left and we will be starting US 40. A couple blocks up on Albany, we pass by this cool looking building here and meet Ventnor Avenue. So if you know your Monopoly, you know some of these streets in Atlantic City. This will be the actual start of US 40 and US 322. We didn't get signage coming from that direction, but coming southbound on Ventnor, we do see a 2 US 40 sign. I don't know why they say 2 instead of just US 40, because US 40 starts right there. And here is our first reassurance shield. We are on US 40 and US 322 West. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about highways and the places that they're signed to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. Continuing west, we have an exit for the Atlantic City Expressway, and we see it is signed west for Philadelphia. Wow, New Jersey actually signing Philadelphia. That comes as a shock. And a little further inland, we are meeting US 9. You see, US 9 itself is signed for Cape May, and we are now signed for Camden. Well, US 40 and US 322, neither one of them is going to Camden, and we are meeting the Garden State Parkway. I did a video about that one, and we are continuing west. We get a sign telling us US 40 and 322 West is for Philadelphia, Delaware Memorial Bridge. Keep right. Surprisingly good signage. However, when we split from 322, we are now getting US 40 West Mays Landing, second right. Not so good. And in fact, here we get 322 West Camden, left 2 lanes. 40 for Mays Landing is going to be turning here. I don't understand this. I don't know why we're getting Mays Landing, because it's a small town and it's very near. We should just go with Vineland at this point. And Camden, this would actually be the only time it would make sense to sign Chester, because 322 is going to head to the Commodore Barry Bridge and go right into Chester. It doesn't really go into Philly. It certainly doesn't go into Camden. Chester weirdly would be the choice. Also, why doesn't 322 just end here? What's the point of having it multiplex with US 40 to the end? It's some random 3-digit US highway that outside of this area not too many people know. So why does it get the grand ending that US 40 deserves and gets? US 40 is going to turn. We are looking at it from the perspective of US 40 is coming from our left and going straight to continue west. And we are now getting Cape May as our control point, which is weird. We don't go anywhere near Cape May. We meet New Jersey Highway 50, which is going to Cape May and Wildwood. We don't get a control for 40 quite yet. US 40 is going to be turning again, and now we're getting Buena as our control point. Again, I think just Vineland would work better here. And we are getting our first exit request of this episode. This is the Balick Winery, and this was requested by Kenny because he came here with his mom, and his mom loves wine. So, hey, why not? I agree there. So, awesome request there. Thank you so much for that request. You can make requests as well by joining the Patreon. If you join the Patreon certain levels, you get different levels of requests per month. It's lots of fun, and you get to see videos earlier and without these promos. And I appreciate everybody who has joined. You can also do a request the old-fashioned way by doing a $5 super sticker and a comment on any video. We got an all-request episode coming up during the Chiefs bye week, so whatever your heart desires for requests, you can throw in there for interchange exit point of interest requests, not whole roads. We're meeting State Highway 54, and now we are finally getting Vineland as our control point. This is in Buena. 40 is going to leave itself again. We get West 40 and 2 State Highway 55 for Elmer and Delaware Memorial Bridge. Delaware Bridge on there is a good one. 40 will become concurrent with the New Jersey Turnpike, and right here we get this terrible sign where we get West State Highway 40 instead of US 40, so they messed up on this. This was requested by Boss King Inc. He wanted to point out this hilarious bad sign, so thank you so much for that request. Sharing pavement with the New Jersey Turnpike toward the end of New Jersey, on the entrance ramp up above here, we are signed for US 40 and South 295 for Delaware, just straight up Delaware. The Delaware Memorial Bridge, we've seen this before and we'll see it again. As soon as we get into Delaware, we leave the 295 and we are joining US 13, signed for NC Airport. Further down this ramp, US 13 is signed for Wilmington and we're joined with South US 13. Here's the junction with US 202. US 202 is going to go north for Newport. There's an exit for Newcastle and we continue to be with South US 13. We get the sign for Dover and Beaches. 40 splits off from 13. 40 is now signed west for Glasgow and Baltimore, so good to see Baltimore on there. That's good signage. However, when Delaware 1 meets US 40, US 40 is signed for Bear and Glasgow. This exit was requested by CJS 1982, and he does not like this signage either. He feels that Baltimore should be here, so thank you so much for that request. In Glasgow, US 40 is signed west for Elkton at this point, which is actually in Maryland. If you're going to sign a Maryland city, you could sign Baltimore, but Elkton is okay too, because Baltimore traffic would probably be taking I-95. Right here, that little stone marker that we see here is from the original survey of the Mason-Dixon line. When we cross from Delaware to Maryland, we are crossing the Mason-Dixon line. Welcome to Maryland, and also welcome to Elkton. We cross into both at the same time. Meeting a couple Maryland state highways, we continue to be signed for Baltimore. This is the bridge over the Susquehanna River. It is a tolled bridge. I tried to avoid the 95 toll one time by taking this road instead, but it turned out it had the same toll. You gotta go all the way up to US 1 to avoid the toll. I skipped ahead to the Baltimore region and we are meeting 695 signed south for Essex and north for Towson. Further into Baltimore, we meet I-95. I-95 gets South Washington. We're in the city of Baltimore now, I believe, and we are on West 40, the Pulaski Highway, which is what the name of this road has been for a little while. And we are getting an option for Truck 40 here. I feel like that's a very East Coast thing, these truck highways. And we also have an option of 2 South 895 shortly. This is where the Pulaski Highway splits, so we split off, we end up on Orleans Street, continuing on West 40 through the east side of Baltimore. We pass right by the crown jewel of East Baltimore, which would be Johns Hopkins Hospital. Johns Hopkins University, of course, right next to this as well. This is downtown Baltimore that we're getting to now. We're passing over I-83, the JFX. We do not have an interchange for it because I-83 is just going to end just shortly south of this. Orleans now is going to split into 2 one-way streets, Franklin and Mulberry. We're going to be on Franklin. This part of Baltimore is pretty cool. It's kind of old downtown or north downtown. Right here is Charles Street, and we see the Washington Monument up ahead, which is actually the older Washington Monument than the one in DC. Looking south down Cathedral Street, we can see the Basilica of Baltimore. This is our vantage point looking south down Green Street from US 40. And way in the distance there, we can see the lights for the Ravens Stadium. That's one of the 2 stadiums we'll be seeing today. Continuing west, we are going to be hitting one of the worst mistakes in the entire highway system. This is really awful. We are merging 40 west. This was planned to be Interstate 170, but it was canceled. It never should have been built anyway. This failed 170 project was requested by CJS 1982. So thank you so much for that request. So here it is, the highway to nowhere. We merge on, you see this giant right of way where there's nothing there. There used to be a bunch of houses and businesses and whatnot. They wrecked it all to build this for nothing. Here's what it looks like when 40 is merging onto the road to nowhere from Franklin Street or getting back onto Mulberry Street. And here it is. Wow, look at all the traffic. Yeah, this thing is a disgrace. It never should have been built. The whole urban freeway system probably is not a good thing to begin with. We really should have done it more in the way that Europe does it, where you have ring roads and long distance roads connecting cities, but without jamming freeways right through the middle of neighborhoods. Now we're going to get, I think, our only exit, which is 40 West, to get back onto Franklin Street, which has been our frontage road this entire time. The other real kicker about this horrible freeway to nowhere thing is that US 40 and US 1 don't actually intersect. US 1 goes over US 40 on one of these bridges, but you have no meeting between perhaps the two most iconic US highways that exist, at least the most iconic two that still exist, with 66 being the most of all. Really just awful all around. Here's what it looks like when we get back onto Franklin Street. We could have driven down Franklin Street as well and gotten the same thing. We could have met US 1 that way, but since 40 doesn't officially meet US 1, I had to take you through the other way. And finally, we get to West Baltimore Station. This is the last of where the land was cleared out to build this freeway. There's a big giant parking lot for West Baltimore Station. So let's take a look at this. This is where this whole road was built, from West Baltimore Station to where the interchange originally happened. People wonder why there's problems in West Baltimore. This used to be all houses and businesses and useful neighborhood stuff that was all ripped out right in the middle of this neighborhood for nothing, for no reason. This is not a good thing to have been built. Right here is where Franklin and Mulberry meet back again, and we will continue west down city streets in Baltimore. We're turning left onto Edmondson Avenue, which will be 40's route through western Baltimore and the immediate suburbs. We meet 695, signed for Glen Burnie and Towson. And on 695, 40 is signed for Baltimore and Ellicott City, which makes sense 100%. US 40 meets US 29 just south of I-70. That's why US 29 gets 29 to 70. 29 signed south for Columbia, and this was requested by Tiger Raven because he takes this way to DC to avoid the traffic on I-95. And I get that for sure. I've taken that way around to avoid traffic on 95 as well. So thank you so much for that request. The road we're on now is called the Baltimore National Pike. It's some form of the old National Road, and this is where old 40 merges back onto current 40 with us. And now old 40 is leaving us. Old 40 is signed throughout Maryland as Maryland 144. There's several different Maryland 144s, but all of them are part of the old National Road, which then became US 40, which now is Maryland 144. It's a very historical road, US 40. Very interesting. We're going to meet I-70, so to east I-70 turn right, to west I-70 go straight. The reason we don't turn at all is because we end up being forced onto I-70. Having already done an I-70 video, I'm going to jump ahead to here because we've got an exit request. Leo wanted to see North US 15 and its exit here because that is an alternate route that he has taken home from the DC area. Thanks so much, I really appreciate that. And US 40 is also leaving I-70 at this point as well. We're on northbound US 15 and westbound 40. 40 is going to be leaving to become West Patrick Street through Frederick, Maryland. This is what Patrick Street looks like as it goes through suburban Frederick. We approach I-70 once again. I-70 signed west for Hagerstown and Hancock, but US 40 continues on its own. Continuing on its own. This is the old road, the old National Road, then 40. 70 has kind of replaced it now. We cross I-70 once again. We see a whole lot of I-70 on this road for sure. Here's another meeting with I-70. I-70 signed West Hancock, East Frederick. Oh my God, those are terrible control cities for I-70 at that point. Coming from I-70 itself, we get 40 West Hagerstown. This is what downtown Hagerstown looks like. I've never actually been. Looks pretty cool. US 40 and US 11 intersect in Hagerstown near downtown. On the outskirts of Hagerstown, we meet I-81, signed North Harrisburg, and south to I-70 for Roanoke. In case you miss a rare chance to get on I-70 from US 40, might be, upwards of 5 miles before we see it again. On I-81, 40 is signed east for Hagerstown, which makes sense, it's right there, and west for Hewitt? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's a small unincorporated place, so I don't know why we're signed for that. Clear Spring is going to be the next place of any circumstance that 40 is signed for. In Clear Spring, we see signs for I-70 and East Maryland 68. Wonder if Maryland 68 came first or I-68 came first. I imagine they have to be related. Down in the distance, we are forced to merge with West 70, and we're getting Hancock as our control city, because of course. On I-70/US 40, we meet 522 South for Hancock. This was requested by Leo. He wanted to see exit 1B for 522 because he's taken the very short section of 522 through Maryland. It's like a mile long. It's amazingly short. And he's also taken it up to Lewiston. So thank you so much for that request. I-70 now gets the wonderful control city of Breezewood, PA. 68 is joined by 40 West and signed for Cumberland. All right.
The most hyped interstate
ever. This exit was requested by Boss King Inc. because this is one of the rare sections where 40 is going to be spending a little bit of time away from I-70 at a considerable distance, not just a couple miles away. So thank you for that request. 40 stays with I-68 through Cumberland, but 40 Alt leaves and goes through central Cumberland. This is the old route of US 40, and this was requested by Ian B 9851. So thank you so much for that request. And as a bonus, this is what Alt 40 looks like after it gets off I-70 going through Cumberland. It's a nice looking road. We're meeting northbound US 219, and we are joining it as southbound US 19 along with 40. This exit was requested by Leo, so thanks so much for that. He wanted to request that because he's done some videos on US 219 itself. He also took it to Morgantown once. Right here, US 40 is leaving I-68 and it is signed west for Uniontown, so 40 becomes kind of an independent road for a little while now. We also have 219 South, which is signed for Oakland. It also goes to Kaiser's Ridge. This was requested by Dallas Bittinger because he lives there, so thanks so much for that request. At the end of the ramp, we're going to be turning left to continue on West 40. Alt 40, which will go back to Cumberland, turn right. We get a nice Uniontown 32 miles away, only one control city on here, but Uniontown I think is worthy of it in this region. And welcome to Pennsylvania! Alright, buckle up. We passed through some beautiful mountains here in Pennsylvania. It is nice looking. We're meeting Business 44. We continue west on 44 Uniontown. We're joining US 119, so we are assigned North 119 along with 40 to South 119 and South Pennsylvania Highway 43, Morgantown Road, exit here. West 40 here is signed for Main Street or Uniontown. Amazingly, North Pennsylvania 43 is signed for Pittsburgh, which really isn't that far away. US 40 is leaving its own freeway at this point and becoming a surface street when we turn left. So at the bottom of the ramp, we see West 40, turn left for Brownsville, Business 40, Main Street, turn right for Uniontown. This road's now called the National Pike, so another take on National Road makes sense. Pennsylvania 43 shortly here. And here's where we meet Toll 43, and it is indeed signed for Pittsburgh and Uniontown. So, wow, surprisingly good signage for PA. Wonder if that'll hold up. On PA 43, 40 is signed for Briar Hill and Brownsville. Briar Hill we just passed through, and Brownsville will be the next city we'll be heading westbound. We're at the southern end of Brownsville. To get to downtown Brownsville right here, you turn right, and we are signed for Washington, PA, straight ahead. We meet PA 43 again in, North California. Where'd Pittsburgh go? We're only a few miles down the road and you stop signing Pittsburgh. We're closer to Pittsburgh now, yet we start signing California, Pennsylvania. Okay, great job, PA. On 43, West 40 is signed for Centerville. That'll be the next control city we've got, although we've already had Washington signs, and Brownsville will be signed the other way. Meeting Pennsylvania 481, Centerville, turn right. Coming from 481, westbound 40 is now once again signed for Washington, only 11 miles away. I don't like it on 70, I don't like it on 79, but on US 40, Washington is a fine control city. I-79 is signed for Waynesburg for some reason. PA, just sign at Morgantown. US 40 meets US 19 in Washington, and this intersection was requested by Leo. He wanted to show this because both him and the Xavier 456 have made videos about this road, so it is an important road to both of them. So thank you for that request. We're briefly concurrent with US 19, and now North US 19 splits off. We continue on West 40. If we look to the right, we can see what downtown Washington, Pennsylvania looks like. We've talked about this town a lot on this channel, and this is the first time we've actually been right downtown. Wheeling, West Virginia becomes the bottom line out of Washington, and that makes sense to me. I-70 is also signed for Wheeling. 70 probably should just be signed for Columbus, but I get it. For a bit of the western section of Pennsylvania, the far western section, US 40 is right next to I-70. In fact, we can see it from here. We enter West Virginia still as an independent road. You get I-70 east signed for Washington, PA, which again, fine on US 40, not so good on an interstate, and 70 and 470 signed for Columbus. Coming off of I-70, US 40 is signed Elm Grove and Triadelphia, because we're not quite to Wheeling yet. Welcome to Wheeling, although the sign is telling us turn right for Wheeling, but we're also being told we're officially in Wheeling now, so they mean downtown Wheeling. West 40 and North West Virginia 88 head to the right. We go right under the I-70 and I-470 interchange change. We meet I-70 right after it, and it is signed West Columbus, Ohio. Right here, US 40 does kind of a tricky thing where we make about a 170-degree turn to continue straight into Wheeling and west on 40 to West 70. In downtown Wheeling, US 40 is going to be jumping back onto I-70, so we're signed west for Columbus there. We join I-70 and then immediately leave it. We just have this bridge over half the Ohio River onto Wheeling Island, and we will exit onto Wheeling Island along with US 250 north. Wheeling Island, North 250 and West 40 go straight, and we also get to Ohio 7. We're still in West Virginia, so we can't have any Ohio highways just yet. We cross the second half of the Ohio River off of Wheeling Island and into Ohio. I couldn't find a Welcome to Ohio sign. I'm sure there's a nice one on I-70. In fact, I know there is. 40 and 250 are going to be splitting up, and here is Ohio 7. Between Wheeling and St. Clairsville, we hug just to the north of I-70 through pretty much the entire route. So the control cities really could just be small local towns. Here's one exit off of I-70 and 40 signed National Road and County Road 214. So you can't really put any control cities on here because you're better off staying on 70 to get almost anywhere. In St. Clairsville, Ohio, we passed DeCarlo's Pizza. This was requested by ENB 9851. So thank you so much for that request. He said he requested it because he was on a road trip, had a random stop here, and they had Ohio Valley style pizza, which you'd never heard of before, and nor have I, but said it was really delicious. So if I'm ever in that town, I will definitely check that out. We're meeting I-70 once again. I-70 signed for Columbus and Wheeling. Here's the actual sign to get on West 70 Columbus. And unless you are a US 40 completionist or just really need to get to one of these small towns, you're probably better off getting that way. Let's take a look at the map again. Again, US 40 is very close to I-70, parallels it, goes through some of the smaller towns. Eventually, we do merge back with I-70, so we continue concurrent with I-70 at that point. Jumping ahead to exit 186, US 40 is leaving I-70 again, and it's signed for Senecaville and Old Washington. So Old Washington will be the town that we will pass through. Continuing down 40 to the Cambridge area, we are meeting I-77, which is signed north for Cleveland and south for, well, let's leave that alone. On I-77, 40 signed for Old Washington, which would be to the east of us, and Cambridge, which would be to the west of us. We come into Cambridge and we meet US 22. US 22 east is to the right, and we are going to be concurrent with US 22 for quite a few miles here. To get you a control city sign a little bit out of town, New Concord. That'll be our new control city for 22 and 40. Cambridge 2 miles behind us. In New Concord, it's going to be Zanesville as our control city. Zanesville 15. On I-70, 22 and 40 are signed for Norwich because you can get to Zanesville by staying on 70 for a couple more exits. A lot going on here. West 40 and 22 are going to be turning left. They don't have a 22 sign for some reason. Ohio's kind of loosey-goosey with a lot of the signage for US routes here. And more importantly, we are meeting Ohio routes 60 and 146. This was requested by Leo because he has friends who live right near here. So thank you so much for that request. We're concurrent with all those roads for about a block. Continuing down Zanesville, we pass this cool looking St. Nicholas Church. 40 and 22 are going to be turning right just ahead. In downtown Zanesville, 22 West is splitting off. It is turning left onto this street, and we don't get any signage on the main line telling us to turn left for US 22, but we can see the reassurance shield for it as well. Ohio 60 and Ohio 146 take this route as well. We cross the Muskingum River in central Zanesville. This was requested by ENB 9851. He wanted to show this interesting T intersection on this bridge in downtown Zanesville. This is pretty cool. Thanks for that request. Really appreciate that. That's a cool one there. 40 is continuing to the left. We meet I-70 once again, and it is of course signed for Wheeling and Columbus. So between Zanesville and Columbus, US 40 never gets too far away from I-70, and it goes through a lot of small towns. Signing it for anything other than the next town doesn't really make sense because 70 would be a faster way to get there. This is a long enough video anyway. We're going to skip ahead to Columbus. On the outskirts of Columbus, we meet 270, the other 270. I did St. Louis 270 not too long ago. West 40 straight ahead. On 270, east is signed for Main Street and Reynoldsburg, which is a suburb just beyond here, and west West, Main Street, and Whitehall. We're actually on Broad Street now as we meet Ohio Highway 16. 40 continues straight ahead. We're going to be meeting US 62, and for US 62, you're going to want to turn right for one direction of it, and we're going to be concurrent with the other direction. We're heading into downtown Columbus on 40 and 62, and I-71 is below us right here. In downtown Columbus, things get a little weird signage-wise. Signage for 62 kind of disappears for a little bit. US 23 and 33 are concurrent right here on 4th Avenue. You would turn right for northbound US 23 and US 33, but we have no signs telling us that. Coming from the eastbound direction, they do sign US 23 and 33. I don't know why they sign it in one direction and not the other. Maybe the sign fell down or got stolen. I have no idea. And at 3rd Street, the next block up, US 23 and US 62, along with Ohio 3, are signed. They're saying southbound US 62, so we lose US 62 here. US 40 continues straight, and they don't have anything mentioning US 33. So yeah, very weird. We pass right by the Ohio Capitol building, which is always kind of a weird one because the dome doesn't have a top. I don't know if I like that one or if I don't like that one. I can't quite figure it out. It is unique for sure. We meet I-70 on the outskirts of downtown, and it is signed west for Dayton. And at the edge of Columbus, we pass by this US 40 motel. If they name the motel after the road we're doing, I gotta show that. We meet 270 on the other side. 270 doesn't have any control cities, just north to I-70 and south. And it seems west US 40 will be signed for London, straight ahead. We are in Lafayette, Ohio, and we're meeting US 42. And this junction with US 42 was requested by Tim Hackett because Lafayette is very near and dear to his heart. His family's from there, and they ran a guest house right around here in the early 20th century and also sold antiques. That's fantastic, right there on the old National Road. So thank you so much for that. Tim Hackett also requested the Red Brick Tavern here in Lafayette, Ohio, and says really the entire stretch of 40 between Dayton and Columbus has a lot of significance to him. Thank you so much for that request. That looks like a great place to hang out. US 40 westbound at this point is going to be signed for Springfield, as well it should be. We meet I-70 once again, and it is signed for Columbus and Dayton, as it is throughout all of western Ohio. On the eastern edge of Springfield, we meet US 68. US 68 signed for Xenia and Urbana. On US 68, US 40 is signed west for Donnellsville, so that'll be our next control city. After passing Donnellsville, we end up in Vandalia, and this drives me insane. I know one really has nothing to do with the other, but it just bugs me that in Baltimore, we rip out a whole neighborhood to make a freeway to nowhere. But here in Vandalia, they loop US 40 way around a golf course, because, you wouldn't want to interrupt a golf course. We're meeting I-75. I-75 signed for Dayton and Toledo. We are basically in the Dayton area right now, in the Dayton suburbs. On I-75, US 40 is signed for Vandalia and Donnellsville. Sensible control cities there for a US route. On US 40, we pass right by Dayton International Airport. I don't know how international it is, maybe a weekly flight to Cancun or something. After leaving the Vandalia, Dayton greater metro area, Inglewood is a suburb of Dayton, and then we would have just passed through. Westbound 40, we are heading now toward Lewisburg. Out here in the middle of nowhere, we meet US 127, so here's our junction with that. Now we're far west enough in Ohio that we are only getting Indiana control cities. So we get Richmond, Indiana, and Indianapolis, Indiana. Do they really need the IN for Indianapolis? I think people know what state that's in. We're on the Ohio side right before Richmond. I've been to this place before. My buddy and I, we were doing a road trip and we stayed in Richmond. We went to a local store to buy beer and they were like, oh, it's Sunday. We don't sell beer in stores in Indiana. So we walked 5 minutes onto the Ohio side and we're able to buy beer here at this lovely mart. So thank you, Petro. We meet I-70 and US 35 right at the Indiana state line. So we got a lot going on here. So we see Indiana, they're giving us both of the Indiana tropes on the Welcome to Indiana sign. We get Benjamin Harrison and Lincoln's boyhood home. Usually they only give us one. And we also get our exit for 70 West and 35 North for Indianapolis. Here's a sign for 70 East and 35 South, Columbus. This might be old because it's from 2018 and it mentions Columbus. This might have changed to Dayton by now. We meet meet US 27 in central Richmond, Indiana. So north US 27, turn right on 9th Street and go straight for West 40. One block down in downtown Richmond, you would turn south for US 27 and Indiana Highway 227 and continue straight for 40. Coming out of Richmond, Centerville is going to be our next place signed, and Indianapolis is our bottom line at 64 miles away. Not too far away to Indy. So looking at the map from Centerville until the outskirts of Indianapolis, same kind of deal in Ohio. We're never too far away from I-70. It's just going to be a bunch of secondary control small towns and Indianapolis on the bottom line. So I'm going to skip ahead. In Indianapolis, we meet 465 and we get South 465 and West US 40. We're on Washington Street, on the outskirts of Indianapolis suburbia. On 465, 40 East and Washington Street is also our exit. They don't give us any control cities. I'm going to do a 465 video eventually, so I'm going to skip, but I will note right here, before we get this exit for US 52, we've got an amazing 7 roads concurrent on 465 at this point. US 31, 465 itself, US 52, US 40, US 36, US 421, and Interstate 69 are all sharing pavement right here. So on the other side of 465, we exit 40 West, still Washington Street. So obviously Washington Street was the old route of US 40 through town before they routed everything onto 465. Here is Indiana State Highway 39 looking south at US 40, left for Plainfield, a suburb of Indianapolis. Westbound, we are signed for Greencastle. US 40 doesn't actually go to Greencastle, so on the next sign we get Stylesville and Terre Haute. So I wonder why they don't put Greencastle on there, since Greencastle was our control from Indiana 39. We're meeting state highways 240 and 75 right here. One of those is the one to take you to Greencastle, straight ahead for Terre Haute. We meet US 231 in a fairly rural area. US 40 is straight ahead. To I-70, of course, because we're never too far away from that. Now we're getting Brazil 17 miles away. It's the next town of any significant size. I do think signing Greencastle's fine, even though we don't go to it. Signing it out of Indy, signing Brazil after that as our secondary would work well. And then Terre Haute 33. Or even as our primary, because if you wanted to go to Terre Haute, you'd be on I-70 because it's faster. We're heading into Terre Haute and we get to I-70 and West 40 along with East Indiana 46. Turn left. Indiana State University, the Sycamores, go straight, and downtown Terre Haute. Old 40 would be going straight. So here's where we meet I-70 and we get West 70 and West 40 for St. Louis. We're in Indiana, so it's well signed. We're concurrent with I-70, but here's where we meet US 41 for Terre Haute and Evansville, since I did 41 as far south as this earlier. Illinois really brings out the fanfare on I-70. We just get this Illinois state line thing. There might be a better Welcome to Illinois sign, but I couldn't find it in Illinois. It just makes it too hard to find. Shortly in Illinois, we get this 40 West sign. No control cities given. We're going to be somewhat parallel to I-70 and just passing through small towns. Even on the ramp, they don't give us any kind of control city at all, just 40 West, turn left. We meet Illinois Highway 1, Michigan Avenue. Come on, Illinois Highway 1 is Halsted Street, not Michigan Avenue. From Illinois Highway 1, we are signed for Casey if you turn left. Right there in front of a Casey's. Interesting. Terre Haute, Indiana if you turn right. So we will head over to Casey. In Casey, we meet Illinois 49, signed for Willow Hill and Kansas. That doesn't go to Kansas. It doesn't get anywhere near it. Illinois 49 sign up ahead. We'll zoom in on that a little bit. And this was requested by saturnotaku. He wanted to see this intersection for Illinois 49 and Casey in general, because Casey is known for a lot of world's largest this and that. The world's largest rocking chair and the world's largest wind chime. So not too far off of US 40. We also have the world's largest golf tee. Seems like cool things to look around at. Thank you to saturnotaku for that request. Really appreciate that. On Illinois 49, if you turn left onto US 40, we will be signed for Greenup. And now we see Greenup is 9 miles away, Effingham 32. Skipped ahead to Effingham, we meet US 45, not surprising because US 45 tends to hang around with I-57 a lot. We're concurrent with US 45 for a short period, and now US 45 south is going to turn left on Banker Street. In my mind, Effingham, you kind of know it for two things. You got this big giant cross that they compete with Texas with, and I-70 and I-57. And in this picture, we see both. We go under I-70 and I-57, but we do not get an interchange with that concurrency. I wonder if we'll ever get to meet I-70 again then. Coming out of Effingham, Vandalia is going to be our next control city, and that's a good choice. Oh, well, we do meet I-70. Oh, Whew, I was worried there for a second. West 70 St. Louis, not East St. Louis, so that's an improvement. East 70 Effingham makes no sense at all, because if you're driving on this road, you're coming from Effingham, or you're coming from some small town where you'd be better off going the other direction on 40 to get to Effingham. Southbound US 51 is signed for Sandoval, and we are going to be concurrent with US 51 heading into Vandalia. Just before meeting I-70 once again in Vandalia, US 40 will turn left. And on the outskirts of Vandalia, we pass this weird arch thing. I don't know what it is, but it just looked cool in Street View. I-70 still signed for St. Louis and Effingham. US 40 spent some time very close to I-70. Once again, we can see I-70 just to the left of us. And in fact, coming out of Mulberry Grove or so and continuing for quite a ways, we are going to either be next to or concurrent with I-70, so I'm going to skip ahead a bit. Exit 30 is the next time 40 properly leaves, and 40 is heading to Highland. Here's where we split off from Illinois 143, and we go straight for Highland. In Highland, suddenly we're signed for East St. Louis instead of St. Louis, but I guess on a smaller road like 40, that's not so bad. Illinois Highway 4 travels above us, and we have a kind of quasi-interchange over to it, and the TheDerpHog wanted to see this because he used Illinois Highway 4 when he was visiting family in Springfield, Illinois on a recent road trip. So thanks so much for that request. You get a mileage sign even though we're kind of in the St. Louis metro area now, 5576 miles away, and East St. Louis 23. We join southbound 55 and westbound 70 heading for St. Louis. I-70 signed west for Kansas City. It's going to go over the newer stand span. We continue into downtown St. Louis on I-64 and I-55. 40 signed along with them. We cross the Poplar Street Bridge, and we've got all this going on in downtown St. Louis, where we meet 44, 270 for Kansas City, 44 and 55 for Tulsa and Memphis, and we get 64 and 40 for St. Louis. I already covered that section of freeway on the I-64 videos, so I skipped ahead to where we meet I-70. US 61, which we are concurrent with now, is signed north for Hannibal, and we are getting back on I-70, signed for Kansas City. We're concurrent with I-70 through a big chunk of Missouri for over 100 miles, so I'm skipping that because we already covered that in the I-70 video. We are exiting at exit 121 for Fayette, and really for Boonville. I don't know why Fayette gets first priority here. I certainly don't understand why County Route UU would be first billing here over US 40 and State Highway 240. US 40 and 240 will split. We will go straight for Boonville, 10 miles away. Just before Boonville, we cross the Missouri River. This is downtown Boonville, Missouri. Remember when I was a kid, my dad said he was going to go to Topeka for something, and I was like, oh, I'll go, let me go. Ride on the road, yeah. My dad was like, if I said I was going to Boonville, Missouri, you'd want to go along on the ride too. And I was like, yeah, I probably would. We meet I-70, which eastbound is not signed for St. Louis. I edited out the C word there. I didn't want to offend anybody there, or certainly myself. Kansas City, 100 miles. We are joining back with I-70 westbound for Kansas City. Jump ahead about 75 miles because we're concurrent with 70 that whole way, and 40 will exit here at exit 24 for Grain Valley. We will be turning left, and Grain Valley also is left. Buckner, 8 miles in the other direction. This is Missouri Highway 7, and we meet it in Blue Springs, Missouri, one of the farther eastern suburbs of Kansas City. Kansas City 17 miles ahead, but that would be downtown. We're going to meet the city limits of Kansas City very soon. This is I-470 and Missouri 291, signed for Lee's Summit and Liberty. Here's another interchange with I-70. We are within the city limits of Kansas City at this point. We pass right by Cool Crest Family Fun Center. I've never been there. They had commercials on TV like in the 80s all the time. It's a nice family kind of place. Anyway, shout out Cool Crest. Glad they're still going. A little bit past Cool Crest, we meet Blue Ridge Cutoff. And if we turn left here, well, let's see where we go. About a mile off of US 40, we end up right here at Arrowhead Stadium. This is the gate that we always used to go into Arrowhead from Blue Ridge Cutoff. That is where we shall end, right where the game tonight is beginning. All right, let's take a look at Todd's the way it should be for US 40, AC to KC. We're only talking westbound, and I'm going to say it should start with Pleasantville, Vineland / Chester, because 322 should be signed for Chester, then Vineland Vineland. Wilmington. Why sign Delaware when you could sign Wilmington? Then Dover when you're on US 13. Then Glasgow. Then Elkton. This other town in Maryland, maybe you could sign it. It's kind of big. It's on the way, but if they skip ahead to Baltimore, and that's fine by me too. Ellicott City, Frederick, Hagerstown, Cumberland, Frostburg, Uniontown, Washington, PA, Wheeling, St. Clarksville, Old Washington, Cambridge, New Concord, Zanesville, then a bunch of small towns between Zanesville and Columbus, then Columbus, West Jefferson, Springfield, Dayton Airport. They don't really sign that, but I think that'd be the thing to sign. And then there's a bunch of small towns in Ohio leading up to Richmond, then a few small towns in Indiana, then Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greencastle, Brazil, Terre Haute, Marshall, Casey, Greenup, Effingham, Vandalia, Greenville, Highland, Troy, St. Louis, Chesterfield. 64 and 40 should be signed for Chesterfield once you're beyond 270. Then Kansas City, Boonville when it leaves I-70, and then Kansas City once again once it joins back with I-70. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. This has been a lot of fun, quite a marathon, and we will continue all the way to the western end of US 40 at the end of the regular season when the Chiefs take on the Broncos. Until next time, my name's Todd, and keep on trucking.